The evening sun stretched long shadows across the marble floors of Ashford Manor as Jack Mitchell knelt to scrub invisible stains from the immaculate surface.
There.
His worn work boots squeaked against the polished stone, calloused hands moving in the practiced rhythm of a man who had cleaned countless floors over his 15 years as a janitor. At 35, Jack's face carried the weathered lines of someone who had shouldered more than his fair share of life's burdens. The faded blue uniform hung slightly loose on his frame, a testament to meals he'd skipped to ensure his 7-year-old daughter never went hungry. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, autumn leaves swirled across the manicured grounds of the estate. Jack paused briefly, glancing at his battered watch, a gift from his late wife, Anna. 6:30 already. If he hurried, he could finish the main hall before heading home to Queens, where Lucy would be waiting. Homework spread across their tiny kitchen table, eager to share stories from her day at school. The sound of elevator doors sliding open broke the silence. Jack kept his head down, focusing on his task as soft footsteps approached. Designer heels clicked rhythmically against the marble, stopping just at the edge of his peripheral vision. "You're Jack Mitchell, correct? Jack Mitchell." The voice carried the unmistakable cadence of old money, soft yet commanding. Jack looked up to find Claire Ashford watching him with curious green eyes. At 24, she carried herself with the poise of someone who had never known want. Her emerald dress probably cost more than his monthly rent, her manicured fingers absently turning the diamond bracelet on her wrist. "Yes, Miss Ashford, I'm almost finished here." Jack quickly averted his gaze. In his experience, when the wealthy noticed you, it rarely meant anything good. He'd learned that lesson through years of being invisible to the people whose homes and offices he cleaned. Ashford Industries owned half the buildings in Manhattan, and Claire was the youngest member of the family's board of directors. Facts Jack knew only because the cleaning staff often traded stories about the family they served but never truly knew. "Good, I have a proposition for you." Jack's throat tightened. He needed to pick up Lucy from their neighbor soon. Mrs. Sullivan was kind enough to watch her after school, but he hated imposing on the elderly woman's generosity. Besides, Lucy had been fighting a lingering cough ever since her bout with pneumonia last winter, an illness that had generated medical bills he was still struggling to pay. "I need to get home to my daughter soon, Miss Ashford. She gets worried if I'm late." Something in Claire's expression shifted, a momentary softness breaking through her polished exterior, a flash of genuine interest, perhaps even vulnerability that seemed out of place on someone born into such privilege. "How old is your daughter?" 7. Her name's Lucy. She's... Jack hesitated, unsure why he was sharing personal details with someone who lived in such a different world. "She's all I have left." Claire studied him with unexpected intensity, her eyes scanning his face as if searching for something specific. The weight of her scrutiny made Jack unconsciously straighten his posture, a reflexive dignity asserting itself despite his humble position. "I need a companion for tomorrow night's charity gala. $5,000 for one evening. Black tie, smile, make small talk. That's it." Jack nearly dropped his cleaning rag. $5,000 would cover Lucy's overdue medical bills from her pneumonia. It would pay for the Science Museum field trip she'd been talking about for weeks. It might even leave enough for a proper winter coat to replace the one she'd outgrown. "I don't have a tuxedo, Miss Ashford." "I'll handle everything." Her eyes never left his face. "There's just one condition. You can't ask questions about why I need you there. Can you do that?" Through the mansion's windows, Jack could see his rusted Honda in the circular driveway, exhaust still visible in the crisp October air. Inside that car was Lucy's booster seat, held together with duct tape, and her beloved stuffed bear, Captain Hero, missing one eye. The bear had been a gift from Anna just before she died in what police had ruled a tragic accident. a truck running a red light, striking her car with such force that the vehicle was nearly unrecognizable. 2 years later, the loss still felt raw, especially in moments when Lucy's smile mirrored her mother's so perfectly it took his breath away. "Yes, I can do that." Claire smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Good. Tomorrow at 7. Don't disappoint me, Jack Mitchell." As she walked away, the scent of expensive perfume lingering in her wake, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he had just agreed to something far more complicated than a simple evening out. But $5,000 was $5,000, and Lucy needed so much more than he could provide on a janitor's salary. The two-bedroom apartment in Queens that Jack shared with Lucy was a world away from Ashford Manor. The kitchen faucet dripped despite his repeated attempts to fix it, and the radiator clanked through the night during winter months. But tonight, as Jack turned his key in the lock, hearing Lucy's excited footsteps running to greet him, it felt like home. "Daddy!" Lucy threw her arms around his waist, her dark hair falling in waves around her heart-shaped face. "Mrs. Sullivan let me help make cookies, and I got an A on my math test." Jack lifted her into a hug, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo, the cheap kind that came in large bottles from the discount store. Lucy had Anna's eyes, deep brown with flecks of amber, and the same determined chin. In so many ways, she was the perfect blend of them both, Anna's intelligence and compassion with Jack's resilience and practicality. "That's my smart girl. Let me just thank Mrs. Sullivan, and then you can tell me all about your day." Their elderly neighbor waved away his gratitude as she always did. "Lucy is a blessing, Jack. Such a good helper in the kitchen." Her eyes softened with concern. But that cough of hers came back. Maybe she should see the doctor again. Jack nodded, though they both knew another doctor's visit meant more bills he couldn't afford. "I'll keep an eye on it. Thank you for everything, Mrs. Sullivan." After Mrs. Sullivan left, Jack found himself at their small kitchen table staring at the pile of bills he'd been avoiding. The electricity notice was stamped "Final Warning" in angry red letters. Lucy's school had sent home a form about the Science Museum field trip. $30. That might as well have been $3,000 for all his ability to afford it. The refrigerator hummed erratically in the background, another appliance on its last legs that he couldn't afford to replace. "Is everything okay, Daddy?" Lucy looked up from her homework, too perceptive for her 7 years. She had arranged her colored pencils in perfect rainbow order, a small act of creating order in their often chaotic life. Jack quickly tucked the bills away. "Actually, I have some good news. I got offered some extra work. Good work that pays well." Lucy's eyes lit up with hope. "Really? Does that mean I can go to the Science Museum with my class? Parker said we'll get to see real dinosaur bones and a planetarium show with stars that look just like the real night sky." "I think so, kiddo. In fact, I have to go to a fancy party tomorrow night, like in the movies." Lucy giggled, her missing front tooth making the sound even more delightful. "You're going to look silly in a fancy suit, Daddy, like a penguin." "Probably." Jack agreed, though the thought of wearing clothes worth more than their rent made his stomach churn. He'd spent most of his adult life in work uniforms and second-hand clothes. The last time he'd worn a suit was at Anna's funeral. "Mrs. Sullivan said she'd watch you tomorrow night. Is that okay?" Lucy nodded enthusiastically. "She always has cookies and tells me stories about Ireland. She says the stars look different there, but they're still the same stars, just from a different angle." Lucy paused, thoughtful beyond her years. "Do you think Mommy can see the same stars we do, just from a different angle too?" Jack swallowed the lump in his throat. "I think so, Princess, I really do." He gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Now let's make dinner and you can tell me all about that math test." Later that night, after Lucy had fallen asleep clutching Captain Hero, Jack sat at their kitchen table, the bills spread out before him once more. The medical bills from Lucy's pneumonia remained unpaid after 10 months. The hospital had started sending letters from their collections department, each one more threatening than the last. The school had sent home 3 reminders about the field trip money, and now the electric company was threatening to cut service. He ran a hand through his hair, studying the budget he'd created, a careful accounting of every penny that somehow never stretched far enough. Before Anna's death, they'd been getting by. Not comfortably, but with 2 incomes they'd managed. She'd been a talented interior designer, finally starting to build a reputation among some well-connected clients when the accident happened. Insurance had covered the funeral, but little else. Now it was just Jack working 60-hour weeks across 3 different janitorial jobs, always tired, always behind. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Tuxedo fitting tomorrow at 2 p.m. Address attached. Don't be late. Jack stared at the message, wondering what Claire Ashford really wanted from him. In his experience, the wealthy didn't throw money around without expecting something substantial in return. But as Lucy coughed softly in her sleep, a lingering reminder of her illness, he realized he would walk through fire if it meant giving his daughter a better life. The boutique on Fifth Avenue smelled like expensive leather and quiet judgment. Jack stood awkwardly among racks of suits that cost more than his car, feeling like an imposter in his worn jeans and faded work shirt. The tailor, an older Italian man named Giorgio, circled him with measuring tape and disapproving clicks of his tongue. Shoulders too broad for the Armani, but the Brioni, yes, this will work. Jack caught his reflection in the 3-way mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. The charcoal suit transformed him from janitor to someone who might actually belong at a charity gala. But the transformation felt like putting on a costume for a play he hadn't auditioned for. His hands, no matter how thoroughly he'd scrubbed them, still bore the calluses and tiny scars of years of manual labor, markers of a life that couldn't be concealed by expensive fabric. Miss Ashford has excellent taste. Giorgio pinned the jacket sleeves. She was very specific. He must look like old money, she said. Not new money trying too hard. Jack frowned. How do you know the difference? Giorgio smiled knowingly. Old money whispers, young man. New money shouts. You, my friend, have the face for whispering. The tailor stepped back, assessing his work. The eyes, perhaps. Something in them that cannot be bought. While Giorgio worked, Jack's phone buzzed with texts from Lucy, sent from Mrs. Sullivan's phone. Daddy, Mrs. S. made cookies. A blurry photo of Lucy's sauce-covered grin followed. The simple joy in her smile centered him, a reminder of what really mattered amidst this strange detour into a world of wealth and privilege. After the fitting, Jack took the subway back to Queens. The contrast between the luxury boutique and the crowded train car was stark and disorienting. He had 3 hours before his night shift at the office building in Midtown, just enough time to help Lucy with her homework and make dinner before Mrs. Sullivan would come over to watch her. The rhythm of his life, carefully calibrated to maximize time with his daughter while still earning enough to keep them afloat, left little room for unexpected events like charity galas with millionaire heiresses. At 6:30 the next evening, Jack stood before the bathroom mirror in his apartment, struggling with the bow tie that had defeated him twice already. His hands shook slightly, not from nervousness about the party, but from the weight of what $5,000 meant for them. It was hope in tangible form, a breathing space in the constant struggle to stay ahead of poverty. The bow tie finally cooperated on the 3rd attempt. The man in the mirror looked like someone Jack might have passed on the street and assumed had an easy life, someone born to privilege rather than someone who had cleaned the bathrooms of the privileged since he was 20. The transformation was unsettling, a reminder of how much appearance dictated the way the world responded to you. Lucy sat on the edge of the bathtub, watching him with wide-eyed fascination. You look like a movie star, Daddy, or maybe a spy on a secret mission. Jack smiled, momentarily relieved by her enthusiasm. Just a janitor in borrowed feathers, princess. Sometimes I think people don't see how special you are, but I always see it, even when you're just in your work clothes. Jack knelt down to her level, straightening the collar of her pajamas. You know what, Lucy? Sometimes I think you're the wisest person I know. Lucy's expression turned serious. Daddy, do you think Mommy would be proud of us? Sometimes I forget things about her, like the sound of her laugh, and it makes me sad. Jack felt his throat tighten. Your mom would be so proud of you it would practically burst out of her, and whenever you smile with your whole face or when you get excited about learning something new, that's when I hear her laugh the clearest. Lucy wrapped her arms around his neck, careful not to wrinkle his suit. I think she sent you this fancy job today. Sometimes I think she's like my guardian angel, making sure good things find us. The knock on his door came at exactly 7 o'clock. After ensuring Mrs. Sullivan was settled with Lucy and emergency numbers were posted on the refrigerator, Jack opened the door to find Claire Ashford standing in his doorway, looking like she'd stepped from the pages of a fashion magazine. Her midnight blue gown seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously, and diamonds sparkled at her throat like captured stars, but her eyes held the same guarded sadness Jack had noticed at the mansion. You clean up well. Thank you. You look beautiful, Miss Ashford. Claire, tonight we're equals. She paused, studying his face with uncomfortable intensity. Are you ready for this, Jack? Once we walk into that ballroom, there's no going back. Something in her tone made him pause. No going back to what? She smiled, but it was sharp around the edges. To the way things were before. The limousine ride through Manhattan was surreal. Claire sat across from him, occasionally sipping champagne while staring out the window at the city lights. She had given him a brief crash course in charity gala etiquette, but Jack sensed she was holding back crucial information. The city transformed outside the tinted windows, streets Jack knew from bus routes and subway stops appearing dramatically different from the luxurious isolation of the limousine. Can I ask you something? Why me? You could have asked anyone to be your date tonight. Claire's champagne glass paused halfway to her lips. Because you're honest and because... She trailed off, then shook her head. Because tonight I need someone who won't judge me for what I'm about to do. The Plaza Hotel blazed with lights, its entrance crowded with photographers and elegantly dressed couples. As their limousine pulled up, Claire took a deep breath, a momentary glimpse of vulnerability breaking through her composed exterior. Her hand found his in the darkness of the car. Remember, no questions, just smile, make small talk, and follow my lead. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the door handle. And Jack, whatever happens tonight, whatever you learn about me or my family, just know that everything I've told you about why I need you here is true. As the chauffeur opened their door and camera flashes exploded like miniature lightning strikes, Jack wondered what secrets Claire Ashford was carrying and why she needed a janitor from Queens to help her face them. He offered his arm and they ascended the hotel steps together, his years of physical labor giving him a natural grace that matched her practiced poise. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was a cathedral of wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across tables laden with orchids and gold-rimmed plates, while hundreds of New York's elite mingled beneath painted ceilings that had witnessed decades of secrets and scandals. Jack felt every bit the imposter as Claire guided him through the crowd, her hand light on his arm but her grip surprisingly strong. She moved through the social landscape like someone reading a map, steering him toward specific groups with deliberate precision. Jack observed the subtle hierarchies at play, who deferred to whom, whose smiles were genuine, and whose were calculated. Years of being invisible to the wealthy had made him an astute observer of their behaviors, though tonight he found himself inside the aquarium rather than cleaning its glass. Claire, darling. A silver-haired woman in pearls approached them, her smile bright but her eyes calculating. And who is this handsome stranger? Mrs. Winters, I'd like you to meet Jack Mitchell. Jack, this is Margaret Winters. She runs the Ashford Foundation's educational initiatives. Jack shook the offered hand, noting how Margaret's eyes lingered on his face with unexpected intensity. There was something almost clinical in her assessment, as if she were cataloging his features against some mental checklist. Mitchell. What an interesting surname. Are you from New York originally, Jack? Queens. Born and raised. Something flickered across Margaret's features. Surprise, recognition, maybe fear. Her hand briefly fluttered to her pearl necklace, fingers nervously adjusting the clasp. How fascinating. She excused herself abruptly, leaving Jack confused by the strange encounter. Claire's grip on his arm tightened. We need to keep moving. They navigated through clusters of conversations about tax shelters disguised as philanthropy and vacation homes in places Jack had never heard of. He recognized several prominent business leaders and politicians whose faces had appeared in the newspapers he sometimes read during his lunch breaks. Claire introduced him as her dear friend, but he noticed how she never elaborated on how they'd met or how long they'd known each other. At their assigned table, Jack found himself seated between Claire and a portly man named Robert Hayes, who immediately launched into a monologue about his yacht, while his wife gazed longingly at the wine bottles. Jack noted the practiced ease with which Robert dropped names and figures. 60-foot yacht, summer home in the Hamptons, winter retreat in Aspen, as if casually establishing his position in the hierarchy of wealth. So, Jack, what line of work are you in? The question Jack had been dreading. He glanced at Claire, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Facility management. Technically true, even if his facilities were other people's toilets and floors. Ah, real estate. Excellent field. Which properties do you manage? Before Jack could stumble through another evasive answer, the lights dimmed and a woman approached the podium. She was elderly but regal, with silver hair swept into an elegant chignon and eyes that seemed to take in everything. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ashford Foundation's annual gala. I'm Eleanor Ashford, Claire's grandmother and foundation president. Jack watched Claire's face transform as her grandmother began speaking. The careful composure cracked, revealing something raw and vulnerable underneath. Her fingers tensed around her champagne glass, knuckles whitening with pressure. When Eleanor's gaze swept across their table and landed on Jack, he felt pinned in place like a specimen under a microscope. The elderly woman faltered mid-sentence, her composed expression slipping for just a moment before she recovered. This year, we're proud to announce a new scholarship program for underprivileged children in Queens. Eleanor continued, but her eyes never left Jack's face. Sometimes the most important gifts come from the most unexpected places. The applause was thunderous, but Jack barely heard it. Eleanor Ashford was staring at him with an expression he couldn't decipher. Shock, perhaps, or recognition, something that looked almost like fear. The intensity of her gaze made the fine hairs on the back of his neck stand up, an instinctive warning that he had walked into something far more complicated than a simple charity event. During the auction portion of the evening, Claire bid aggressively on a painting of a lighthouse, paying far more than its apparent value. The piece was unremarkable to Jack's untrained eye, a simple seascape with a solitary lighthouse perched on rocky cliffs. When Jack questioned her about it later, she simply said, "Some things are worth more than money." As the evening wore on, Jack noticed other guests stealing glances at him, their expressions ranging from curious to concerned. Margaret Winters appeared at their table twice more, each time engaging him in conversation that felt more like an interrogation. "Where did you attend school, Jack?" "Queens Public, nothing fancy." "And your parents, what do they do?" "My mother died when I was 15, cancer. My father passed when I was very young." "How tragic. No siblings?" "Just me." Each question seemed innocent enough, but the intensity behind them was unsettling. It was as if these people were trying to piece together a puzzle, and somehow Jack was a crucial piece. You know, you have such distinctive features, I feel like I've seen your face before. Claire stood abruptly, champagne sloshing over the rim of her glass. Jack, would you mind getting me some air? I think I need to step outside for a moment. On the hotel's balcony overlooking Central Park, Claire finally dropped her composed facade. Her hands shook as she lit a cigarette, the first Jack had seen her smoke. The October night was cool, the city spread below them in a tapestry of lights. In the distance, the modest glow of Queens was barely visible, a reminder of how far Jack was from his normal life. I need to tell you something, but first I need to know, did your mother ever mention anything about your father? Your real father? Jack felt the world tilt slightly. What are you talking about? My father was David Mitchell, construction accident when I was 2. Claire took a long drag of her cigarette, the ember glowing bright orange in the darkness. Jack, what if I told you that everything you know about your family is a lie? Before he could respond, the balcony door opened and Eleanor Ashford stepped outside, her face pale in the moonlight. Her eyes darted between Claire and Jack, the careful poise she'd displayed at the podium now replaced by barely contained alarm. Claire, what have you done? The grandmother's eyes moved between them, and Jack saw something there that made his blood run cold: guilt, recognition, and 35 years of buried secrets. Eleanor Ashford's voice cut through the night air like a blade. Claire Elizabeth Ashford, you were specifically told never to pursue this. Jack looked between the two women, feeling like he'd walked into the middle of a movie with no context for the plot. Told by whom, grandmother? By you? By the board? By the same people who covered this up in the first place? Covered what up? Jack stepped forward, his patience finally breaking. I agreed to be your date, not your pawn in some family drama. I have a daughter waiting for me at home, and I don't have time for riddles. Eleanor's composure cracked slightly. She studied Jack's face with the intensity of someone reading a map to buried treasure. Oh, my dear boy, you have his eyes, William's eyes. Who the hell is William? Jack demanded, the confusion giving way to building anger. Claire turned to face him fully, her earlier nervousness replaced by grim determination. William Ashford. My uncle, he died 35 years ago in what everyone called an accident. Jack felt something cold settle in his stomach. What does this have to do with me? Eleanor moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Because, Jack Mitchell, William Ashford was your father. The words hit Jack like a physical blow. The sounds of the party inside seemed to fade, replaced by a rushing sensation in his ears. The world around him tilted and shifted, reality reorganizing itself in a pattern he couldn't comprehend. That's impossible. My father was David Mitchell. He died in a construction accident when I was 2. David Mitchell adopted you when he married your mother, Claire said gently. But your biological father was William Ashford, heir to the Ashford fortune, and my father's younger brother. Eleanor's hands trembled as she spoke. William fell in love with a young woman from Queens, a waitress named Rose Bennett who worked at his favorite diner. When she became pregnant, he wanted to marry her, wanted to acknowledge the child publicly. But the family wouldn't allow it. The scandal, Jack said, the pieces clicking together with horrible clarity. An Ashford marrying a waitress, having a child out of wedlock. Eleanor's laugh was bitter. The scandal would have destroyed us socially and financially, so we made her an offer she couldn't refuse. Jack's hands clenched into fists. You paid her off. We gave her enough money to disappear, to start over somewhere else with her child. It was what was best for everyone. Everyone except my father. What happened to William? Claire and Eleanor exchanged a look that spoke of years of family secrets. He threatened to expose everything. Threatened to tell the newspapers about you, about how the Ashford family had abandoned their own blood. 3 days later, he died in a car accident. The balcony felt like it was spinning. Jack gripped the railing, his knuckles white against the cold stone. You think he was murdered? I know he was murdered, and I've spent the last 3 years gathering proof. Eleanor's face had gone ashen. Claire, you don't understand what you're risking. What, grandmother? The people who killed William and covered it up? People who spent 35 years making sure the truth never came to light? Claire's voice rose dangerously. People who are still alive, still in positions of power, still protecting their interests. Jack thought about Lucy asleep in Mrs. Sullivan's apartment, clutching Captain Hero and dreaming of the Science Museum. He thought about the $5,000 that had seemed like salvation just hours ago. He thought about his life, the endless struggle, the constant worry, the feeling that no matter how hard he worked, he would never be able to give Lucy the life she deserved. I need to go. This is too much. I need to get back to my daughter. Jack, wait! Claire caught his arm. Don't you see? You're not just a janitor from Queens. You're William Ashford's son. You're heir to half the Ashford fortune. I'm heir to nothing. I'm Lucy's father. That's the only thing that matters to me. But as he walked toward the balcony door, Eleanor's voice stopped him cold. They know about Lucy. Jack froze. What did you say? The people who killed William, who've been protecting this secret for 35 years, they know you exist now. And they know about your daughter. Eleanor's face was grave in the moonlight. Claire has made you both targets by bringing you here tonight. Through the ballroom windows, Jack could see the party continuing. Elegant people laughing and dancing, unaware that on this balcony, a 35-year-old murder was being discussed along with threats to a 7-year-old girl. What do you want from me? Jack asked quietly. Claire's answer would change everything. I want you to help me prove who killed your father. And in return, I'll make sure Lucy is safe and you both get what William wanted you to have all along. The limousine ride back to Queens was suffocating. Jack sat in silence, watching the city blur past while Claire spoke in hushed tones on her phone, arranging security details as casually as she might order coffee. No, I want them at his apartment building within the hour. And make sure they're discreet. A 7-year-old girl lives there. Jack's head snapped toward her. You're having my daughter watched? Claire ended the call. Protected, not watched. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've dragged my family into something that could get us killed. The limousine pulled up outside Jack's building. Through the grimy windows, he could see Mrs. Sullivan's apartment, lights still on. Lucy was probably asleep on her couch by now, clutching Captain Hero, blissfully unaware that her life had just been upended by secrets older than she was. Jack, listen to me. Claire's voice was urgent. Your mother is still alive. The words hit him like electricity. What? Rose Bennett, your mother, she didn't die of cancer when you were 15. That was another lie, another cover-up. Jack felt the last foundations of his reality crumbling. That's impossible. I was at her funeral. I saw her buried. You saw someone buried, but it wasn't your mother. Claire pulled out a tablet, showing him a photograph of a woman in her 60s working in a garden. The face was older, weathered by years and sadness, but unmistakably familiar. She looks like Lucy, Jack whispered, his voice catching. She's your daughter's grandmother, and she's been living in hiding for 20 years because she tried to tell the truth about William's death. Jack stared at the photo, his mind reeling. The woman had Lucy's smile, the same stubborn set to her jaw that Jack remembered from his childhood. The people who killed William made it clear that if she ever tried to expose them, you would die. So she faked her death, disappeared, and has been watching over you from a distance ever since. Watching over me? Jack's voice was hollow. I was 15 years old. I was alone. Foster care, group homes, sleeping in shelters. She wanted to take you with her, but it would have put you in more danger. At least if you stayed, you could have a normal life, even if it was difficult. Normal? You call living in poverty normal? Compared to being murdered? Yes. The limousine door opened and Jack stepped out into the cold Queens air. His building looked shabbier than ever next to Claire's wealth, but it was real in a way that nothing from tonight felt real. "I need to check on Lucy. You can come up if you want to continue this conversation, but I need to see my daughter first." Claire nodded, following him into the building. Mrs. Sullivan answered her door in a faded housecoat, her eyes widening at the sight of Claire in her evening gown. "Lucy is sleeping. Such a good girl, no problems." Jack thanked her, gently lifting his sleeping daughter into his arms. Lucy mumbled something about dinosaurs but didn't wake, clutching Captain Hero closer to her chest. In the quiet of their apartment, Jack tucked Lucy into bed, adjusting her nightlight, a constellation projector that cast stars across her ceiling, before quietly closing her door. Claire waited in the small living room, looking out of place among the second-hand furniture and discount store decorations. She had removed her diamond earrings as if trying to tone down her obvious wealth. "Tell me everything. No more games." Claire sank onto the worn couch. 3 years ago, I found a locked box in my father's study. Inside were letters from William to your mother, photographs of them together, and journal entries detailing his plan to acknowledge you publicly despite the family's objections. She pulled documents from her purse, yellowed letters and faded photographs. Jack's hands trembled as he accepted them, seeing his mother's youthful face smiling up at a handsome man who shared his jawline and eyes. William fell in love with Rose when she waited on him at a diner in Queens. She was putting herself through community college, studying to become a nurse. He kept going back day after day until he finally asked her out. Jack studied the photographs, trying to reconcile this smiling couple with the mother he'd known. Always tired, always worried, but fiercely protective and loving. The family was horrified when they found out she was pregnant. The Ashfords don't mix with common people. They offered her money to disappear to terminate the pregnancy, but she refused. William supported her decision and threatened to go public with everything, not just about you, but about some questionable business practices at Ashford Industries. What kind of practices? Bribery of government officials, tax evasion, possibly even money laundering. I haven't been able to find concrete proof yet, but William knew everything. He was being groomed to take over the company eventually. Jack set the photographs down, suddenly recognizing a familiar landmark in the background of one. "This is the lighthouse from the painting you bid on tonight." Claire nodded. "William proposed to Rose there. It's where they were happiest. I've been trying to buy that painting for years, but it always mysteriously disappears from auctions before I can get it. Tonight was the first time I succeeded." Jack's eyes narrowed. "So what happened after William threatened to expose the family?" 3 days later, his car went off a cliff near that same lighthouse. The brakes had been cut. The official investigation ruled it an accident, but William had told Rose he was being followed in the days before his death. Claire pulled out more documents. Copies of police reports, news clippings, and what appeared to be mechanical inspection notes. "Your mother knew it wasn't an accident. She started asking questions, gathering evidence. But when you were 15, she got too close to the truth. She received threats against your life, photos of you walking to school, notes detailing your daily routine. So she did the only thing she could think of to protect you. She disappeared. Let me think she was dead. Let me go through the foster system, struggle on my own. She had people watching over you. Anonymous deposits into your bank account. Strings pulled to get you jobs. The janitorial position at Ashford Manor wasn't an accident, Jack. She wanted you close enough to be protected, but not so close that you'd be recognized." Jack paced the small living room, trying to process everything. "And Anna, my wife's accident." Claire's expression darkened. "That's what I've been trying to figure out. 2 years ago, I started looking for you in earnest. I tracked down records, followed the money trail your mother left, and then, just as I was getting close, Anna died in a car accident." "You think it wasn't an accident?" "I think it's too much of a coincidence. Anna was an interior designer, right? Working on a renovation project at a law firm. Yes. How did you know that? Because the firm was Drake and Associates. Vincent Drake is deeply connected to the Ashford family. He's been their attorney for over 40 years. I believe Anna may have found something during that renovation. Perhaps documents related to William's death or your mother's disappearance. The room seemed to spin around Jack. He steadied himself against the wall, memories flooding back. Anna's excitement the day before her accident, telling him she'd found something important about his family history. Her nervousness checking the locks twice that night. She called me the day she died, said she discovered something that could change our lives. 3 hours later, she was hit by a truck that ran a red light. Claire's eyes widened. Did she say what she found? No, she wanted to tell me in person. Jack's voice broke. She never got the chance. Silence hung between them, broken only by the distant sound of city traffic and the hum of the old refrigerator. You've been watching me for years. Why approach me now? Claire rolled up her sleeve, revealing a bandage on her forearm. Because 3 days ago, someone cut the brake lines on my car, just like they did to William 35 years ago. I barely survived. She showed him a newspaper clipping on her tablet. The headline read, Ashford Heiress injured in suspicious car accident. Finding you, bringing you into this. It wasn't just about exposing the truth. It was about creating enough chaos to keep me alive long enough to fight back. Jack's eyes narrowed. You used me as bait. I used you as protection. They can't kill both of us without raising too many questions. 2 Ashford heirs dying in the same month? Even they're not that bold. As if summoned by their conversation, headlights swept across the window. A black sedan pulled up across the street, its engine idling. Claire noticed Jack's gaze. They're not here to hurt you. Not yet. They're here to watch, to see what you'll do next. Jack moved to Lucy's room, gently opening the door to reassure himself she was still sleeping peacefully. In the soft glow of her nightlight, she looked so small, so vulnerable. He thought about the medical bills that had seemed so important just hours ago. They felt trivial now compared to the threat looming over his daughter's life. If I help you, if we do this together, what happens to Lucy if we lose? Claire's answer was brutally honest. Then she grows up an orphan just like you did. But at least she'll grow up knowing her father died fighting for the truth instead of running from it. The black sedan's engine hummed in the distance as Jack made the decision that would define the rest of his life, however long that might be. Tell me about my mother. Where is she now? Portland, living under the name Melissa Morrison. She owns a small flower shop. I've arranged for you to speak with her tomorrow, securely through an encrypted video call. Jack ran a hand through his hair. And what's our next move? We need evidence. Concrete proof that Vincent Drake ordered William's murder and was behind the threats to your mother. And Anna's accident, too. Jack nodded toward the window where the black sedan remained. What about them? My security team is watching them watching us. Lucy will be protected, I promise you that. Jack studied Claire's face, searching for deception, but finding only grim determination. Why are you doing this? Really, this fight was over before you were born. Because William was the only member of my family who was ever kind to me. Everyone else saw me as an heir, a continuation of the Ashford line. William saw me as a person. He used to sneak me ice cream before dinner and tell me stories about a world where people were valued for their hearts, not their bank accounts. For the first time, Jack saw beyond Claire's polished exterior to the lonely child she must have been. Growing up in that cold marble mansion. And because I've spent my life surrounded by people who believe money puts them above the law, above basic human decency, I'm tired of watching them get away with it. A soft knock at the door interrupted them. Jack tensed, but Claire raised a calming hand. It's probably my head of security. I asked him to bring something. Jack checked the peephole before opening the door to a tall man in a crisp suit who handed over a secure laptop and several files before disappearing without a word. We should get some rest. Tomorrow will be difficult. You're staying here? If that's all right, it's safer for both of us to stay together right now. Jack nodded toward the couch. It's not the plaza, but it's clean. Claire smiled with a wry tilt to her lips. I've slept in worse places. Boarding school had surprisingly uncomfortable beds for what my parents paid. As Jack gathered spare blankets for Claire, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. His blood turned to ice as he read the message. Your daughter looks so peaceful when she sleeps. He rushed to Lucy's room, heart hammering. She was there, safe, but the window was slightly open, a window he was certain he'd locked. Another text arrived. We need to talk. Riverside Park, 1 hour. Come alone or the next photo won't be so innocent. Jack showed the message to Claire, who immediately called her security team. They've breached the perimeter. How? While Claire dealt with her team, Jack sat on the edge of Lucy's bed, watching her chest rise and fall with each breath. The thought of someone standing in this room photographing his sleeping daughter made him physically ill. My team swept the apartment, no listening devices, but they found this. Claire held up a small tracking device. It was on your suit. They've been following you since the tailor. I need to meet them. They threatened Lucy. I can't risk that. It's a trap. They'll kill you. If I don't go, they might hurt Lucy. I can't risk that. Claire was quiet for a moment. There's another option. My mother has a house in the Hamptons. It's isolated, secure, and unknown to most of the family. I can have Lucy taken there tonight with Mrs. Sullivan if she's willing. They'll be safe while we deal with this. And leave Lucy with strangers? Not strangers. My mother's staff has been with her for decades, and Vincent Drake has no idea the property exists. My mother bought it under a different name years ago during a brief rebellion phase. Jack looked down at Lucy, weighing his options. Let me talk to Mrs. Sullivan. To his relief, Mrs. Sullivan agreed immediately. I will protect her like my own granddaughter. She was already packing a small bag. Within 30 minutes, Lucy, still half asleep, was bundled into an unmarked car with Mrs. Sullivan, surrounded by Claire's security team. Daddy, why are we having a sleepover at the beach? Lucy mumbled, clutching Captain Hero. Jack knelt beside the car door. It's a special surprise, Princess. Mrs. Sullivan will stay with you, and I'll come as soon as I can, promise? Cross my heart. I love you bigger than the sky, remember? And deeper than the ocean. Lucy finished their familiar exchange before drifting back to sleep. As the car pulled away, Jack felt as if his heart was being torn from his chest. If anything happens to her, so it won't, Claire assured him. Now about that meeting at Riverside Park. I think it's time we turn the tables. An hour later, Jack walked through the deserted paths of Riverside Park, fallen leaves crunching beneath his feet. The city felt different at this hour, emptier, more dangerous. Every shadow could hide a threat. According to Claire's plan, her security team was positioned throughout the park, watching from a distance, ready to intervene if necessary. He found a man waiting by the river, elegant even in the pre-dawn darkness, distinguished, probably 65, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much. Jack Mitchell. The man's voice was smooth, cultured, or should I say Jack Ashford. Who are you? Someone who knew your father very well. My name is Vincent Drake. I was William's best friend and the man who had him killed. The confession hit Jack like a physical blow. Despite Claire's suspicions, hearing the admission spoken so casually was shocking. Why? Because I loved him. Because he was going to throw away everything, his family, his fortune, his future, for a waitress from Queens and her bastard child. That bastard child was his son. That bastard child was going to destroy the Ashford legacy. William couldn't see past his romantic notions. He was going to acknowledge you publicly, marry your mother, make you his heir. Do you have any idea what that would have done to the family's reputation? Jack thought about Lucy, about the fierce love that would make him burn down the world to protect her. So you murdered him. I saved him from himself, and I saved you from a life of being whispered about, pointed at, forever known as the illegitimate Ashford heir. Vincent stepped closer. I gave you the gift of anonymity. You gave me a life of poverty and lies. And look how strong it made you. Look at the man you became, honest, hard-working, devoted to your daughter. Would you have been the same if you'd grown up drowning in Ashford money and expectations? The twisted logic made Jack sick. What do you want from me now? I want you to walk away, take your daughter, take the money Claire is offering you, and disappear. Live quietly, raise your child, forget you ever heard the name Ashford. And if I don't? Vincent dropped his cigarette, crushing it under his expensive shoe. Then you'll join your father at the bottom of the river. And your daughter will have another unfortunate accident, just like her mother did. Jack's world tilted. Anna's death wasn't an accident. Did you really think it was coincidence that she died just as you were starting to ask questions about your past? Just as she was beginning to research your mother's supposed death? The memory hit Jack like lightning. Anna's last phone call, excited, saying she'd found something important about his family history. She died 3 hours later when a truck ran a red light. You've been watching me for years, Jack whispered. Protecting my investment, protecting the secret that's kept this family stable for 35 years. Vincent straightened his coat. You have 24 hours to decide, Jack. Walk away rich or stay and die poor. As Vincent disappeared into the darkness, Jack stood alone by the river, understanding finally that this had never been about justice or family legacy. It had always been about power and how far people would go to keep it. His phone buzzed, a text from Claire. Did you meet him? Jack typed back. Vincent Drake. He killed William and Anna. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, meet me at the warehouse. It's time to end this. The warehouse in Brooklyn looked abandoned from the outside, but inside it hummed with activity. Claire had transformed it into a command center. Computers lined tables, photographs covered walls, and whiteboards mapped out 35 years of Ashford family secrets. Jack stared at a timeline that started with his birth in 1989 and ended with Anna's death in 2022. Every tragedy in his life connected to the Ashford family's need for silence. Vincent Drake has been the Ashford family's fixer for 4 decades, Claire explained, pointing to surveillance photos. When William threatened to expose the family's treatment of you and your mother, Vincent didn't just arrange his murder. He orchestrated a complete cover-up. A woman emerged from the shadows and Jack's heart stopped. She was older, grayer, but unmistakably the face from the photograph Claire had shown him. Hello, Jack. I'm your mother, Rose Bennett. Rose looked exactly like Lucy would in 60 years. Same stubborn jawline, same gentle eyes, same way of holding her hands when nervous. I've been watching you from a distance for 20 years. I've seen you graduate high school, get married, become a father. I was at the hospital when Lucy was born. Jack couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. 20 years of grief and abandonment crashed against the reality that his mother had been alive, watching, caring from afar. Why didn't you... He started. Because Vincent Drake made it clear that if I ever contacted you directly, you would die just like William died. Just like Anna died when she got too close to the truth. Claire stepped forward. Your mother has been my secret ally for 3 years. She's the one who provided most of the evidence against Vincent. Rose opened a briefcase filled with documents, photographs, and recordings. Vincent kept trophies. Evidence of what he'd done. He thought it made him untouchable. Who would believe a dead waitress from Queens over a respected Ashford family lawyer? Jack picked up a photograph of his father, young and laughing, holding a baby that must have been Jack himself. William Ashford looked happy in a way that made his murder even more heartbreaking. There's something else. Rose's voice was quiet. Anna isn't just your wife, Jack. She's also Vincent's daughter. The room went silent. Jack stared at his mother, certain he'd misheard. Vincent Drake is Anna's father. He's been watching Lucy not just to control you, but because she's his blood, the only grandchild he'll ever have. The pieces clicked together with horrible clarity. Anna's mysterious family background, her reluctance to talk about her father, the way she'd always seemed to know more about Jack's past than she let on. Anna knew. Jack's voice was flat. Rose nodded. She found out 3 years ago when she started researching your family history. She discovered not only that you were William Ashford's son, but that her own father was William's killer. She was going to expose everything, Claire added, so Vincent arranged an accident that looked random. But Anna had already hidden copies of the evidence. Rose continued. She knew he would come for her eventually. Claire pulled out a laptop. The evidence is all here. Financial records showing Vincent's payments to the truck driver who killed Anna. Audio recordings of him confessing to William's murder. Photographs of him tampering with car brakes, both William's in 1989 and mine 3 days ago. Jack thought about Lucy, innocently playing while her grandfather plotted her father's death. What about Lucy? Is she safe? For now. Claire's tone was measured. Vincent won't hurt her as long as she's useful as leverage against you. But if we expose him, he'll see her as a liability. And then what? Jack finished. Rose moved closer to her son. There's one more thing, Jack. Something Vincent doesn't know. Anna left something for Lucy, something that proves everything. She handed him a small key. Storage Unit 247 on Roosevelt Avenue. Anna rented it 2 days before she died. Inside is a letter for Lucy and a safety deposit box key. The box contains enough evidence to destroy Vincent Drake and everyone who helped him. Jack looked at the key, understanding that it represented both salvation and potential doom for his daughter. If we use this evidence, Vincent will know he's finished. A man with nothing left to lose will do whatever it takes to survive, including killing a 7-year-old girl. The warehouse fell quiet except for the hum of computers processing 35 years of buried secrets. Jack held the key that could bring down his father's killer, knowing that using it might cost his daughter her life. Outside, dawn was breaking over Brooklyn, and somewhere in the Hamptons, Lucy was waking up in a world where her father had to choose between justice and her safety. Jack stood outside Storage Unit 247. The small key Rose had given him clutched tightly in his palm. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the rows of identical orange doors, the facility still quiet at this hour. Claire and Rose waited beside him, their breath visible in the autumn chill. Anna rented this 2 days before she died. Whatever she found must have been important enough to risk everything. Rose's voice carried the weight of someone who understood that kind of risk intimately. Jack took a deep breath and inserted the key. The padlock clicked open and he raised the rolling door to reveal a space barely larger than a closet. Inside sat a single cardboard box labeled in Anna's familiar handwriting. For Lucy, when she's ready to know the truth. His hands trembled as he lifted the box. Inside were neatly organized folders, a sealed envelope addressed to Lucy, and a small jewelry box containing a safety deposit box key tagged with First National Bank, Box 1247. Jack opened one of the folders, finding documents Anna had meticulously collected during her research. Newspaper clippings about William Ashford's accident, financial records from Ashford Industries showing suspicious transfers around the time of his death, and most surprisingly, photographs of Anna herself meeting with an elderly woman. That's Barbara Drake, Vincent's mother and former secretary. She reached out to Anna after recognizing your name on some paperwork. She was the one who first connected the dots between Anna's work at the law firm and your history. Rose's explanation made Jack's chest tighten. Another folder contained photocopies of legal documents bearing Vincent Drake's signature, authorizations for payments to offshore accounts. confidential settlements with families of accident victims, and internal memos discussing the William Ashford situation in cold, clinical terms. She was building a case, gathering evidence piece by piece. Jack's throat constricted with emotion. And it got her killed, just like it almost got me killed. Claire's voice was grim. Whatever's in that safety deposit box must be the final piece. Something so damning that Vincent couldn't risk it becoming public. Jack carefully repacked the box, securing the unit before they departed for the bank. The city was coming alive around them, morning commuters hurrying past, oblivious to the decades-old conspiracy unraveling in their midst. I've been thinking about what Vincent said, about me being stronger for growing up without the Ashford money and influence. Part of me wants to believe that's just his twisted justification, but Claire finished for him. But you wonder if he's right, if wealth would have corrupted you somehow. Jack nodded. I look at Lucy and I wonder what kind of person she'll become. I've always believed our struggles made us appreciate the small things, a new book, a day at the park, ice cream on paydays. But I've also laid awake at night, terrified that I couldn't afford medicine if she got sick again. Rose leaned forward from the back seat. William worried about the same thing. He told me once that wealth was like water. It could nurture growth or drown you, depending on how you managed it. He wanted to teach you that balance. He never got the chance. The First National Bank's marble columns and brass fixtures spoke of old money and discretion. A manager escorted them to the private vault area after Jack presented his ID and the safety deposit box key. Rose and Claire waited outside while Jack entered the viewing room alone. Box 1247 opened with a soft click. Inside lay a sealed manila envelope labeled Insurance in bold letters, a USB drive, and a handwritten letter from Anna. Nathan's hands shook as he unfolded his wife's final message. My dearest Jack, if you're reading this, then what I feared has happened. I've discovered something terrible about your past and my own. By some cruel twist of fate, our lives were connected long before we met. When I was hired to renovate Drake & Associates, I found documents hidden in a false panel while measuring the office for new bookshelves. At first, I didn't understand their significance, legal papers, old photographs, recordings. But then I saw your mother's name, Rose Bennett, and yours, Jack Mitchell. I kept digging and discovered the truth. My father, Vincent Drake, orchestrated the murder of your father, William Ashford. And more horrifying still, he's been monitoring you your entire life. Our meeting wasn't chance. He engineered it, perhaps as some twisted way of keeping his enemy's son close. The USB contains everything. Audio recordings of my father confessing to your father's murder, financial records of payments to the mechanic who tampered with William's brakes, and surveillance photos of you throughout your life. There's also a video confession from Barbara Drake, my grandmother, made shortly before her death last year. I don't know if you can ever forgive me for my father's sins, or for the fact that I've kept this from you for months while gathering evidence. But please know that what we have, our love, our Lucy, that was always real. I was drawn to you long before I knew the truth. Tell Lucy that I love her more than all the stars in the sky. And remember that you are not defined by the Ashford name or by my father's actions. You are the man who taught me what real strength looks like. The real insurance? It's inside Captain Hero, where she'll always keep it safe. All my love, Anna. Jack wiped tears from his eyes as he carefully packed the contents back into the box when he emerged from the viewing room. Rose took one look at his face and pulled him into an embrace. She loved you. That's what matters most. Outside the bank, Jack briefed Claire on what he'd found. We have everything we need to destroy Vincent. Audio confessions, financial records, even video testimony from his mother. Claire nodded grimly. But as soon as we move against him, Lucy becomes his primary target. I need to see her. Now! They drove to Claire's mother's estate in the Hamptons, a sprawling oceanfront property hidden behind high walls and security gates. As they approached, Jack's phone rang. Mrs. Sullivan's number. "Jack, I need to tell you something about Lucy." Her voice was strained and his grip tightened on the phone. "Is she all right?" Yes, she's playing on the beach with the security men watching. But this morning she told me something strange about her bear, Captain Hero. She said her mother put something special inside him. A secret that keeps us safe, she called it. I didn't think much of it until I noticed the stitching around his remaining eye looks different from the rest of him. Jack's heart raced. "Mrs. Sullivan, don't let Lucy out of your sight. We'll be there in 20 minutes. As they pulled up to the estate, Jack spotted Lucy immediately building a sandcastle at the edge of the private beach, 2 security guards positioned nearby. She looked up at the sound of the car, her face breaking into a joyous smile as she spotted her father. "Daddy!" She ran toward him, sand flying from her small feet. "I made a castle with real towers and everything, and I found so many seashells." Jack scooped her up, holding her tightly against his chest. "I missed you, Princess. I missed you too. Did you see the ocean? It's so big. Mrs. Sullivan says it goes all the way to Europe." Over Lucy's shoulder, Jack nodded greeting to the security team. The lead guard confirmed everything had been quiet, the perimeter secure. Jack set Lucy down, taking her hand. "Where's Captain Hero? I bet he'd like to see the ocean too." "He's having a nap in my room. He was tired from all the traveling." Lucy led him toward the beach house, chattering about her seashell collection. Inside, the beach house was airy and elegant with large windows overlooking the Atlantic. Mrs. Sullivan sat in a sunlit corner, knitting needles clicking rhythmically as she worked. "She's been an angel, though she had a little trouble sleeping last night. Kept saying Captain Hero was worried about something." Jack found the stuffed bear propped against a pillow on Lucy's temporary bed. The worn toy looked the same as always, except for the subtle difference in stitching around one eye, the eye that hadn't been replaced after being lost months ago. "Lily, honey, can I see Captain Hero for a second? I think he might have a loose thread." Lucy handed over the bear without hesitation. "Be careful with him, Daddy. He's very old." Jack examined the stitching carefully. Someone, Anna, had sewn something inside the bear behind the remaining eye. He needed to check without alarming Lucy. "Hey, Princess, why don't you show Claire your seashell collection? I bet she's never seen such amazing shells." Once Lucy was happily engaged with Claire, Jack carefully examined the bear, finding a nearly invisible seam where the fabric had been cut and resewn. Working delicately, he located a small metal object within the stuffing, a micro SD card. Rose joined him, watching as he extracted the tiny card. Anna knew. She knew they might search her belongings, her computer, even the storage unit, but no one would think to look inside a child's beloved toy. "Smart woman." Jack's voice was soft, like mother, like daughter. They gathered in the beach house's study, inserting the micro SD card into Claire's laptop. It contained a single video file, Anna sitting in what appeared to be a hotel room, looking directly into the camera. "My name is Anna Drake Mitchell. Today is October 15th, 2022. I'm recording this as evidence against my father, Vincent Drake, who I believe has committed multiple crimes, including murder, conspiracy, fraud, and corporate espionage." For the next 20 minutes, Anna methodically outlined everything she'd discovered. Dates, locations, account numbers, names of accomplices. She explained how she'd secretly recorded conversations with her father, copying files from his private archives during her renovation work at his firm. Most damning is his confession to me about William Ashford's murder. He believed I would keep his secret out of family loyalty. He was wrong. The video cut to an audio recording, Vincent's voice clearly recognizable. "Of course I had him killed. William was going to ruin everything we'd built. One phone call, one mechanic with gambling debts, and the problem was solved. Tragic accident. No one even questioned it." Anna returned to the screen. I've placed copies of all supporting evidence in a safety deposit box. If you're seeing this, it means my father discovered what I was doing. If anything happens to me, please protect my husband Jack and our daughter Lucy. They are innocent in all of this. She paused, emotion finally breaking through her composed facade. Jack, if you're watching this, I'm so sorry. I love you and Lucy more than anything. The truth was worth fighting for, even knowing the risk. The video ended, leaving them in stunned silence. We have him. This is everything we need. Claire's voice was steady, but Jack could hear the relief underneath. But how do we use it without putting Lucy at risk? As soon as we move against Vincent, he'll come after her. Unless we make him believe we have nothing, Rose suggested. What if we approach him, tell him we searched the storage unit and safety deposit box but found nothing useful? Make him think Anna's evidence was a bluff. He wouldn't believe us, Jack argued. He might if we gave him something else he wants. Me, the last remaining threat to his position. I tell Vincent I'll leave the country, never return, sign away my Ashford shares in exchange for your safety and Lucy's. Meanwhile, we secretly turn everything over to the FBI. He'd never agree to that. He'd want proof the evidence was destroyed, Rose warned. Then we give him proof. We create decoys, copies of documents with key information redacted or altered, enough to look real but useless if he tried to use them. And we make sure he sees us destroying the originals. Jack's mind was racing. It could work, but it's risky. Not as risky as doing nothing. Every day that passes gives Vincent more time to plan his next move against us. They spent the afternoon preparing their trap, creating convincing decoys while securing the real evidence in an encrypted cloud account accessible only to Claire's most trusted attorney. Jack called Vincent, arranging a meeting for that evening at the lighthouse where William had proposed to Rose 35 years earlier. How poetic. Coming full circle, are we? Vincent's voice had been smooth, almost amused. As sunset approached, Jack knelt beside Lucy's bed for her naptime story. She clutched the newly restitched Captain Hero, the micro SD card now safely extracted. Daddy, are we in danger? Lucy's question caught him off guard. What makes you ask that, Princess? Everyone's acting strange, and those men keep watching the house, and you look worried like when I was sick in the hospital. Jack smoothed her hair back from her forehead. Some grown-up problems came up that I need to fix, but you don't need to worry, that's my job. Is it about Mommy? Because I had a dream about her last night. She was standing by the ocean telling me everything would be okay. Jack swallowed hard. Your mom loved you very much. She wanted us to be safe and happy. I know. She told me once that Captain Hero would always protect me, even when she couldn't. I didn't understand then, but I think I do now. Lucy's small fingers traced the stitching on the bear's face. Jack kissed her forehead. Your mom was the smartest person I ever knew, and you're just like her. As Lucy drifted off to sleep, Jack met Claire and Rose in the living room. It's time. The lighthouse stood stark against the darkening sky, its beams sweeping across the turbulent Atlantic waters below. Jack arrived first as planned, carrying a briefcase containing the decoy evidence. Vincent was already waiting, two men flanking him at a discreet distance. I was beginning to think you wouldn't show. Vincent's voice carried over the wind and crashing waves. I had to make sure Lucy was safe. Always the devoted father. William would have been the same, I imagine. It's the one quality I respected in him. His loyalty to those he loved, misplaced though it was. I've brought what you wanted. Jack patted the briefcase. Everything Anna collected, all the originals. And the copies? There are no copies, this is everything. Vincent studied him carefully. You expect me to believe that? Anna was nothing if not thorough. She would have had backups. She did, in a safety deposit box. We emptied it this morning. And Claire? Where does she fit into this arrangement? I'm right here. Claire emerged from the shadows with a proposal Vincent wouldn't want to refuse. She outlined her offer, her permanent departure from Ashford Industries in New York in exchange for Jack and Lucy's safety. And why would you make such a sacrifice for a janitor and his brat? Vincent's tone was mocking. Because unlike you, I have a conscience. And because William Ashford was the only person in that entire family who ever showed me real kindness. Vincent laughed. Conscience. Such an inconvenient thing. He turned to Jack. Open the briefcase. Show me what my daughter thought was worth dying for. Jack complied, spreading documents on the hood of Vincent's car. The wind immediately caught several papers, sending them fluttering toward the cliff edge. Vincent lunged for the escaping documents, gathering them quickly. While he was distracted, Claire subtly activated her phone, sending a prearranged signal. Within moments, FBI agents emerged from concealed positions surrounding them. Vincent Drake, you're under arrest for the murders of William Ashford and Anna Mitchell, attempted murder of Claire Ashford, conspiracy, fraud, and obstruction of justice. Vincent's face contorted with rage as agents handcuffed him. This is absurd. You have nothing on me. Actually, we have everything. Jack's voice was steady. The real evidence is already with the FBI. This was just to get you here. You'll regret this. You have no idea who you're dealing with. The Ashford reach goes further than you can imagine. As Vincent was placed in a police car, Rose stepped forward from where she'd been waiting out of sight. Hello, Vincent. Remember me? The color drained from Vincent's face. Rose, that's impossible. You're dead. Rumors of my death were greatly exaggerated. I've spent 20 years gathering evidence against you, and now, finally, William can rest in peace. The police car drove away, taking Vincent to face justice after 35 years of impunity. Jack, Claire, and Rose stood by the lighthouse, watching until the taillights disappeared into the distance. It's not over. Vincent has powerful friends. They'll fight this every step of the way. Let them. We have the truth on our side. Jack's voice was firm. Rose placed a hand on her son's shoulder. William would be so proud of you. As they turned to leave, Jack's phone rang. Mrs. Sullivan, her voice frantic. Jack, someone broke into the beach house. We're safe. We hid in the panic room like Claire showed us, but they took things, searched everywhere. Jack's relief was short-lived as Mrs. Sullivan continued. But Jack, they seemed to be looking for something specific. They kept asking about a bear. They took Captain Hero. Jack froze. They know. Somehow they know about the micro SD card. They took Mr. Whiskers. Lucy's voice came through the phone, small and scared. It's okay, Princess. Captain Hero did his job. He protected you just like Mommy said he would. Jack's mind raced. Will we get him back? I don't know, sweetheart, but I promise we'll get you a new bear if we don't. Lucy's response was immediate and firm. I don't want a new one. Captain Hero is special. Mommy gave him to me. Over Lucy's protest, Jack exchanged glances with Claire and Rose. Even without the micro SD card, the intruder's actions confirmed one thing. Vincent's co-conspirators were still active, still dangerous. We can't stay here. If they found this place, it's not secure anymore. Claire decided. Where can we go that's safe? Jack asked. Rose stepped forward. When I went into hiding, I established connections with people who specialize in disappearing. People who understand how to hide from powerful enemies. Not official witness protection, but something similar. A safe house where you and Lucy can stay while the case against Vincent proceeds. Somewhere not connected to the Ashfords or Vincent in any way. How long would we need to hide? Until Vincent's trial concludes, maybe longer depending on how many of his associates are implicated. We're talking about dismantling a conspiracy that's operated for over 3 decades. Jack looked back toward the beach house where Lucy waited. I can't just disappear with Lucy indefinitely. She needs stability, school, a normal life. Rose squeezed his hand. I know it seems impossible now, but think about what's at stake. This isn't just about justice for William and Anna anymore. It's about breaking a cycle of corruption and violence that could otherwise continue for another generation. Back at the beach house, Jack found Lucy clutching the empty space where Captain Hero had been, her eyes red from crying. He sat beside her on the bed, pulling her close. "I know you miss him, Princess, but remember what Mommy said in her letter? The real Captain Hero isn't the toy. It's the love we put into it. As long as you remember that, you'll never really lose him." "But he was from Mommy. It's all I have left of her." Lucy's voice broke Jack's heart. "That's not true. You have her eyes, her smile, her smart brain that loves learning new things. You have all the stories I tell you about her. And you have the love she put into every single day she spent with you." Later that night, after Lucy had finally fallen asleep, Jack stood on the beach house deck, gazing at the ocean. The lighthouse beams swept across the dark water in steady intervals, a navigation aid for those in peril. He thought about William, about Anna, about the courage it took to stand against powerful enemies when the cost of failure was so high. Tomorrow would bring new dangers, but for tonight, Lucy was safe. And for the first time since learning his true identity, Jack felt something like peace. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. Father and daughter, supported by the unlikely alliance of an heiress, and a mother returned from the dead. The truth buried for 35 years was finally coming to light. 3 weeks after Vincent Drake's arrest, the media frenzy had barely begun to subside. The story dominated headlines across the country. Ashford empire built on murder, 35-year cover-up exposed. Janitor heir to fortune. Every day brought new revelations as the evidence Anna had gathered led to additional arrests, investigations into corporate fraud, and the unraveling of decades of corruption. Jack stood at the window of the Greenwich farmhouse, watching autumn rain streak down the glass. The property that William had purchased in secret for Rose and their unborn son had finally become their home after 35 years. The restoration was complete, the furniture sparse but comfortable, and for the first time since Anna's death, Jack felt like he could breathe. "Daddy, look! I finished!" Lucy called from the kitchen table where she'd been working on a craft project. She held up a newly stitched teddy bear, its fabric mismatched but lovingly assembled. Rose had helped her gather materials and taught her basic sewing techniques, a skill passed down through generations. "It's beautiful, Princess. What are you going to name him?" Lucy considered the question seriously. "I think Captain Hero Jr., so he knows he's part of the family." Jack swallowed the lump in his throat. Though they had recovered every piece of Captain Hero from Vincent's office after his arrest, the beloved bear had been damaged beyond repair. Explaining this to Lucy had been one of the hardest conversations of his life. "I think that's perfect." He kissed the top of her head. Rose entered from the bedroom carrying a small box of photographs. "I found these in storage, pictures of William I thought you might want to see." She set the box on the table, spreading out faded photographs. William Ashford in his 20s, smiling broadly at the camera. William and Rose at the beach, young and in love. William painting a nursery, preparing for a son he would never know. "You look so much like him. Not just your face, but the way you move, the way you think through problems." William was always most comfortable working with his hands, building, fixing, creating. The Ashford board hated that he preferred spending time in the workshop rather than the boardroom. Jack picked up a photo of his father standing proudly beside a handcrafted wooden cradle. "He made this for me?" Rose nodded, tears in her eyes. "He finished it the week before he died, said his son deserved something made with love, not just bought with money." Lucy leaned against Jack's arm, studying the photographs with intense curiosity. "Did my Grandpa William like teddy bears too?" Rose smiled. "He had a collection when he was a boy. In fact," she rummaged through the box and pulled out another photograph showing a young William holding a teddy bear remarkably similar to Captain Hero. "This was his favorite. I think that's why Anna chose a bear for you, Lucy. She found this photo among the evidence she was gathering." The doorbell interrupted their moment of reflection. Claire Ashford stood on the porch, smartly dressed despite the rain, a leather portfolio tucked under her arm. Am I interrupting? Not at all. We were just learning more about William. Claire smiled at Lucy. And who's this handsome fellow? She gestured to the newly made bear. This is Captain Hero Jr. I made him myself. Well, Grandma Rose helped with the hard parts. Excellent craftsmanship. He has character. Since Vincent's arrest, Claire had become a fixture in their lives, first as an ally in navigating the legal aftermath, then increasingly as a friend. Despite her wealth and status, she carried herself with a new humility, as if her uncle's example had shown her a different path. I bring news. The board has completed its emergency session. In light of recent events, they've voted to restructure the entire Ashford Foundation and corporate leadership. Claire opened her portfolio on the table. And what does that mean for us? Jack asked, though he already suspected the answer. William's will has been located and authenticated. As his sole biological heir, you're entitled to 40% of Ashford Industries and an equal share of the family trust. She slid a document across the table. Approximately $650 million plus ongoing dividends and property holdings. Jack stared at the figure, unable to fully comprehend the amount. Just months ago, he'd been counting quarters for laundry, skipping meals to afford Lucy's school supplies. There's more. The board wants you to take a seat as a director. They feel, and I agree, that the company needs your perspective. My perspective as a janitor, you mean? Jack's voice carried a hint of challenge. As someone who understands the value of honest work, as someone who won't be corrupted by power because you've seen the damage it can cause, as William Ashford's son. Jack exchanged glances with Rose, whose expression remained carefully neutral. She had made it clear from the beginning that this decision was his alone. I'll consider it, but I need to focus on Lucy first, on giving her stability after everything that's happened. Of course, which brings me to my other news. The renovation of William's house here is complete. It's ready whenever you are. Shortly after Vincent's arrest, Claire had shown Jack the property, a comfortable farmhouse on 10 acres that William had purchased secretly, planning to live there with Rose and their child away from the Ashford dynasty. After his murder, the property had been absorbed into the family holdings, its history and purpose forgotten until Anna uncovered the deed during her investigation. I still don't know if we should move here. It feels like living in a shrine. Something like that. I never knew him. Rose's voice was gentle. It's just a house, Jack. A beautiful one, yes, and filled with William's dreams for us. But it's not a shrine unless you make it one. It could just be a home, the home he wanted for his family. Lucy, who had been listening intently, spoke up. Can I have a garden there, like in the pictures of Grandma Rose's house in Portland? You can have anything you want, Princess, Jack assured her. Then I think we should go. Captain Hero Jr. needs a garden to play in. The adults exchanged smiles at her simple wisdom. There's one more thing. Claire pulled a final document from her portfolio. The board has agreed to establish the Anna Drake Mitchell Memorial Scholarship for interior design students from underprivileged backgrounds. 5 full scholarships annually in perpetuity. Jack felt emotion wash over him. She would have loved that. She always said her design professor changed her life by believing in her talent. Now she'll do the same for others. After Claire departed, Jack helped Lucy prepare for bed while Rose made calls to finalize the moving arrangements. The apartment in Queens felt increasingly like a chrysalis they had outgrown, a necessary shelter during difficult times, but not where they belonged anymore. Daddy, will I still see Mrs. Sullivan when we move to the new house? Lucy asked as he tucked her in. Of course. She can visit any time and we'll come back to visit her too. Good. She makes the best cookies. Lucy clutched Captain Hero Jr. to her chest. Daddy, is Mommy happy now that the bad men can't hurt anyone anymore? Jack sat on the edge of her bed, choosing his words carefully. I think your mom would be very happy knowing you're safe and that the truth came out. That's what she wanted most. Do you think she can see us from heaven? I do, and I think she's incredibly proud of how brave you've been. Lucy nodded, satisfied with this answer. Can I bring Mommy's picture to put in my new room? The one where she's laughing at the beach? Absolutely. We'll bring all our special memories with us. He kissed her forehead. Sweet dreams, princess. I love you bigger than the sky. And deeper than the ocean, Lucy murmured, already drifting toward sleep. The day they moved to Greenwich dawned clear and bright. Jack, Lucy, and Rose stood on the porch of the farmhouse, taking in the 10 acres of land, the barn, the stream that meandered through the back acreage. Everything William had dreamed of, finally realized. Lucy ran across the lawn, Captain Hero Jr. tucked under one arm, exploring her new home with the boundless energy of childhood. Jack watched her, feeling the weight of the past 3 weeks settling into something that resembled hope. Inside the house, Jack found the lighthouse painting hanging in the living room, Claire's auction purchase, now gifted to him. He stood before it, remembering that night at the gala when his entire world had shifted. Behind the painting, he discovered a wall safe that William had installed. Using the key Rose had given him, he opened it to find a leather journal, a pocket watch, and a letter addressed simply, "To my son." Jack sat in the empty room holding his father's words. "To my son, if you're reading this, I've failed to protect you as a father should. I'm sorry. Know that I loved you from the moment I learned you existed. Everything I did was to secure your future. Vincent Drake has corrupted our family's legacy. I've gathered evidence, but if I'm gone, it means he won. You deserved a father who could watch you grow, teach you to fish, help with homework, walk you down the aisle someday. I won't have that privilege, but this house, this land, it was meant for you, your mother, and me. A place where the Ashford name means something good, where family is built on love, not money. I hope someday you'll live here and know you were always wanted, always loved, always worth fighting for. Your father, William Ashford." Jack held the pocket watch, still running after 35 years. The inscription inside read, "Time reveals all truth." Rose found him there, tears streaming down his face. She sat beside him, and together they mourned the father and husband they'd lost, and celebrated the justice they'd finally won. Outside, Lucy's laughter echoed across the property. Jack stood, wiping his eyes, and walked to the window. His daughter was planting flowers in a patch of earth she'd claimed as her garden, carefully arranging each bloom with the same precision she used for her colored pencils. "Is this really where Grandpa William wanted us to live?" Lucy had asked that morning. "Yes, Princess, this is exactly where he wanted us to be." "Then I think he must be very happy now. And Mommy, too." Jack watched her now. This resilient 7-year-old who had weathered so much loss and emerged with her spirit intact. Rose joined him at the window. "She's going to be okay. You both are. I used to think being invisible made me powerless, but Anna taught me that real power isn't about being seen by everyone. It's about being known by the people who matter. Lucy knows who I am, and that makes me the richest man alive." Rose smiled, tears in her eyes. William would have said the exact same thing. As the sun set over the Greenwich property, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber, Jack stood with his mother and daughter in the home that had waited 35 years to be filled with the family it was built for. The truth had cost them dearly, William, Anna, years of separation and struggle. But it had also given them this, a chance to begin again, to build something good from the ashes of tragedy. Lucy ran to him, dirt on her hands and joy on her face. "Come see my garden, Daddy. I planted roses for Grandma and sunflowers for Mommy because they're bright like her smile." Jack took her hand, letting her lead him to the small patch of earth she'd claimed as her own. And as they knelt together in the soil, planting hope in the ground William had chosen for them, Jack understood that some legacies couldn't be bought or inherited. Some had to be built one day at a time with love and truth and the courage to face whatever came next.